All right. Over time in my career, in my tenure as an internet watching person, I feel like I've seen content start to water down. At first, YouTube made silly lip sync videos. We saw really goofy stuff, little skits, things like that. But it wasn't a good substitute for more high level content, stuff like TV. There was content, but it didn't have a lot of production value. Back then, when YouTubers did anything with a sense of production value or intention, it was a really big deal. So there was a guy named Julian Smith who made videos that had actual edits and like really good camera work and cinematic lighting and color grading. He's actually just a director now. That was really noteworthy. He made really cool videos. Other trends came in later that made things a little bit more watchable and increased the amount of content that people could watch. You got things like vloggers who made long highlights of their days. We also saw React videos start to blow up with the stuff the Fine Bros made, and they were, usually featuring some sort of demographic like kids or grandparents. But over time, I feel like the internet kind of absorbed all of those things and then just gave us like cheaper, higher frequency versions of all of that stuff. Most creators are using lighting and camera stuff, and they have nice lenses and depth of field, and their footage looks nice, but they aren't like planning out their footage and making anything cinematic. They might just be using that stuff as a stream setup. Vlogging turned into little get ready with me TikToks. Reacting went from productions with kids and elders to things that streamers just do to like fill time. None of this is really bad, but it's why everything feels so atomized and feels more like building media frameworks or media empires than it does like sharing experiences. And while I can think of some great examples of creators that are making things with high intentionality, I can think of more that just create content machines. Heck, even with this channel, I definitely chose a format where I could just kind of talk about stuff and be prolific without having to like program new features into my VTuber software or build a big edited video with all sorts of scene transitions and stuff. This is a channel where I'm just like talking to you about stuff. We're just having a little conversation, right? And honestly, I kind of feel like the breaking everything down into smaller bits is going to get worse, but weirder. So some content didn't water down. Some content was always just straight up poison. Remember when we had those strange Spider-Man kissing Elsa like kids videos? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're in such good shape. Technology is going to make all of this stuff so much weirder. It's going to make everything. And this is just like already demonstrably true. I'm not pontificating right now. We're going to atomize videos down to the frame, and we're going to max out like every possible kind of content. So imagine instead of like influencer people just sort of riding through this algorithm, trying to imagine what content would best hold your attention, it's just going to be anything that you can type in. And then AI slop is going to backfill that, because a bunch of creatively brain dead people started asking AI tools to mass produce every possible kind of media. So this is inherently happening. Let me give you an example. Do you want to watch a YouTube short of Superman fighting Sully from Monsters, Inc. because they're your two favorite characters? Yeah, they don't really go together, but somebody might generate that for you. How about Hello Kitty riding on top of a photorealistic alligator? You're probably going to be able to watch that. And for some people, this is maybe a good thing. They really, really, really want to watch Spider-Man play chess with Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. But for some of us, that stuff is noise, like that it's spam. All this leads to a media landscape which feels terribly noisy, weird, and frustrating. And in some cases, we already have the solution, because suggestion algorithms are going to filter out the gross, disgusting stuff from the other stuff that's out there, and it might actually even be a way to signal boost content that's real and generated and genuine, and maybe it'll actually be a good thing. But I think we all get the sense that like all of these extraneous images that kind of look like things that we already know are creeping in, and I think that's evident in what we saw this year with Palworld. A lot of people saw Palworld, this video game, and thought it was built with AI. And I think part of that comes from the fact that a lot of the characters in Palworld, a lot of the pals, they look like Pokemon characters. They look like pretty blatant ripoffs of Pokemon. So like, here's this character. I forget their name, but it looks like an electric Totoro who's holding a big, massive honkin' shooter go round. Speaking of that, there's a metaphor I find really interesting. There's this moment in the latest remake of The Magnificent Seven where artistry kind of goes to die. And I'm not being funny because it's a remake of a remake. At this point, there's been a lot of remakes of that movie. And artistically speaking, there's already some inherent death involved in the entire enterprise of making The Magnificent Seven. But the moment I'm going to talk about is referring to this scene where a bunch of the heroes are all in this town having a shootout. There's all sorts of special weaponry from all of the different heroes in the film, and they're all just going crazy with their, their special knife skills or their bows or their six shooters or whatever. And then these villains come into town, they roll in, and then they have this big turret. And this turret just completely destroys everyone. This scene is a really great metaphor because there's a scene where these talented fighters are suddenly useless. They're skilled users who are forced to deal with new technology. It's a blunt force. It's inaccurate. It doesn't have to be. It just creates destruction. Maybe the original content creators are more like skilled warriors from the past. They're like archers who are taking aim at a target and they're pulling back their bows and then they're letting their arrow fly. The creators of today are similar. Maybe they're still archers, but they're archers with crossbows, right? Who are a little bit better at increasing their rate of fire. So my question is does this game become unplayable for people at the end of the day? Does AI swoop in and just create a world where it's impossible to play because there's so much content out there? Maybe you can't monetize a YouTube channel, or just the kickbacks from these content creation platforms are nothing because they just have infinite content now. There's no need to pay anyone for any sort of special skill. But you got to remember that just because something's not financially effective, it doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. Just because today's era has all of these tools that are just kicking things out at this rapid fire rate doesn't mean that something's not worth doing. There's still a bunch of stuff that YouTube hasn't seen yet from you. There is still conceptually and tonally totally new and creative, refreshing things that have not been put on the platform that you can't prompt. We're talking about stop motion episodic series, animated React content, live streams with orchestrated plots. Basically, there's a bunch of new ideas left, and YouTube is getting better and better at serving up more granular content. This is a channel where I get to talk about how technology and creativity mix together. At the end of the day, if you want to make things you find cool in a medium that you connect with, and you don't worry about competing for watch time, you might find that you get to connect with some of us very directly. And that's so much more important than winning the algorithm or getting a bunch of money for it or whatever. The opportunity here and literally the friends you make along the way, that's the good stuff. And it's happening to some degree too. There are creators that are popping up right now. I'm thinking of this YouTube new wave of people that are connecting so directly and making stuff that feels so poignant. It's winning us back from all this stuff. And it could be you too. So don't give up on it.